RationalWiki on Paul Austin Murphy. In RationalWiki's article on me, it stated that
PAM,
love the sarcastic first word,
has an impulsive need to respond to every criticism of him. On the internet, we await his wine response to this article.
I suppose that's at least partly what I'm doing right now. Well, not really. I'm writing this solely because when anyone Googles my name, the RationalWiki entry on me has been, for many years, the very first thing that they'd end up reading. Recently, the entry has moved down to 5th place, though it fluctuates a lot. Yes, when it comes to all the entries about my articles, the RationalWiki piece often comes at the top of the Google list. And this is true of other, though not all, search engines too. Now, RationalWiki shouldn't be surprised that I'm unhappy with that, and there's no reason why I should be happy. That's because whenever anyone reads my articles on philosophy, and then they Google my name, this is often the first thing they'll read. And that, I believe, has been the main, possibly the only, reason why some editors have suddenly stopped publishing my work. Of course, I can't prove this. This is what I believe has happened with the aforesaid editors. Various editors had been publishing my work for quite some time. Then, out of curiosity, they must have Googled my name, and the first thing they'd have read would have been the RationalWiki entry on me. Sure, the writer who wrote the RationalWiki piece will no doubt argue, if he were informed about this, that it's because these editors became unhappy with the quality of my work. Yet I know that this isn't the case. I shan't go into any detail about that. As for the writer of the RationalWiki entry, it seems to be someone who goes by the name Clothcoat, and this is what he says about himself.
Thanks to all my fans for reading this. As you may have noticed, I focus most of my attention on wingnuts. This is mainly because it's entertaining and easy to debunk them. A double win for me. Despite this, I am just a tradition social democrat. The third way is overhyped to me, and according to my political score, am not quite as left-wing or libertarian as most regular users on RationalWiki, by American standards. I'm a total commie, though.
It's worth stating that most of his other entries are in the same Sarky style and cover many of the same issues. One may say that conservatives and the hard right are his favourite subjects. See his later comments. The RationalWiki entry on me reads like it was written by a very young person who's very sure of himself. His grammar gives the game away. It's terrible. Perhaps he's someone who's read a little, probably very little, science and who's therefore put himself on some kind of RationalWiki pedestal. However, I don't know if Clothcoat is very young. I'm simply arguing that he comes across like a hormonal and smarmy teen. To sum up, I believe that if this RationalWiki writer didn't have his sarcasm, then he'd have next to nothing. And yes, this is using sarcasm against sarcasm. So what's my deal anyways? This is how RationalWiki, or Clothcoat, sums me up.
Paul Austin Murphy, Pam, is a very small-time and ultra-bitchy British blogger associated with the political hard right who has apparent delusions of becoming England's answer to Daniel Pipes.
This is a very odd opening passage, and it is so in many ways. Firstly, in what ways does RationalWiki believe I am hard right? And what does the writer mean by the term hard right in the first place? Bizarrely, the linked term hard right in the quote above takes you to another RationalWiki entry on wingnut. I'm English, and the word wingnut is virtually never used here. Politically, I believe in parliamentary democracy. I'm not racist, though no doubt some people will dispute that. I'm not a nationalist, though I am, kinda, a British patriot. I don't believe in benevolent dictators. I'm not a favour of free-for-all capitalism or socialism either. I believe in controlled immigration, etc. Of course, all these stances can be debated. However, I'm not sure that RationalWiki, or Clothcoat, would forgo the teen sneering long enough to genuinely debate these issues. The quote above also mentions Daniel Pipes. Yes, I know who he is. I'd say that I've read one, perhaps two, pieces by him. What's more, I don't remember anything about what he wrote. Indeed, I typed in Daniel Pipes in the search option of my blog, which dates back to 2010, and couldn't find a single reference to him. And that's in a blog which contains hundreds of posts. So RationalWiki has it that I have apparent delusions of becoming, like someone I've virtually never read and who I might have mentioned once. If this RationalWiki writer were a little less fixated on sarcasm and rhetoric, then perhaps he could explain what he meant by the words has apparent delusions of becoming England's answer to Daniel Pipes. Still, I wouldn't want to get in the way of his juvenilia. RationalWiki's summing up of my work continues as follows.
His favorite subjects appear to be the following: how virtually all Muslims want to establish a totalitarian state, how far leftists are actually influential and want to do the same, and how they're working together to accomplish this.
Why are Muslims my favorite subject? I did write some articles on specific Muslims, not on Muslims generically, though mainly on Islam. I wrote on many other subjects too. For example, I've written far more articles on philosophy than on Muslims. Indeed, the subheading of my politics blog reads, "The subjects covered in this blog include Slavoj Žižek, IQ tests, Chomsky, Tony Blair, Baudrillard, global warming, sociobiology, Islam, Islamism, Marx, Foucault, national international socialism, economics, the Frankfurt School, philosophy, anti-racism, etc. I've had articles published in The Conservative Online, American Thinker, Philosophy Now, Intellectual Conservative, Human Events, Faith Freedom, Brenner Brief, Broadside News, New English Review, etc. However, RationalWiki doesn't mention any of the above, not a single time, so either the writer wasn't aware of it, or he simply ignored inconvenient facts. Anyway, does this mean that if someone focuses on, say, quantum mechanics, monetary policy, or woo, as RationalWiki often does, then that make this area his/her favorite subject? Or is sarcasm the main aim here? This is all very odd for a website called RationalWiki. In addition, I've never come anywhere close to the claim that
virtually all Muslims want to establish a totalitarian state.
In any case, my comments were on some Muslims, not on virtually all Muslims. Surely RationalWiki accepts that some Muslims have political views they find objectionable, and that means that some Muslims also believe in establishing an Islamic theocracy. And in broad terms, theocracies, including Christian ones, are totalitarian. And far leftists do want to create a
New order.
That's why they are far left. They won't call that a
Totalitarian state.
But that is what's happened historically on many occasions. There's also lots of evidence that the far left has worked with Islamists, not to establish a totalitarian state, of course, but to work against the British and American, to use a common far left phrase, capitalist democracies. And when push comes to shove, Islamists and far leftists will fight it out between themselves for power once their mutual enemies are defeated or erased. In addition, I happily make an important distinction between the far left and the moderate left. A distinction RationalWiki doesn't make in this entry and doesn't believe I make. Despite all that, the main theme of the RationalWiki piece is my article on RationalWiki for American Thinker. That alone motivated the writer to include a RationalWiki entry on me. This is more biographical detail from RationalWiki.
Apart from his own blog, he also writes for the American Thinker and has been published by Philosophy Now and the New English Review.
He also runs a blog called Paul Austin Murphy's Philosophy. RationalWiki clearly did very little research on me for this piece. That's probably because I'm a, to use RationalWiki's own words, Z-list pundit I've written for all sorts of publishers, not just American Thinker. But here's an honest confession. The RationalWiki quote above mentions Philosophy Now, the New English Review, and my blog. These are my very own, very sneaky editorial additions, a la Wikipedia, to this RationalWiki entry. I left it until 2019 to edit this piece, and I suspect that RationalWiki's editors, or Clothcoat himself, would have deleted my edit had they rechecked their own entry on me, which I doubt they've ever done. Here's another quote from RationalWiki.
He even views David Cameron as being gullible for allowing Muslims to be high-ranking Tories. No, really.
If this RationalWiki writer, Clothcoat, had done his research, he'd have realized that my reference to David Cameron were mainly about a single Muslim member of his cabinet that was Baroness Sayeeda Warsi. The linked article even mentions that. She has very strong views on Islam, racism, etc., So my words weren't references to Muslims in the plural. Indeed, I've had zero problems with all the other Muslims in the Tory party since 2010, of which there have been a fair few, i.e., in proportion to the number of Muslims in the United Kingdom.
No, really.
RationalWiki quotes me. Rational. Wiki does get around to actually quoting some of my, what it sees as more controversial stuff. But that's it. No comment, no analysis. Not even any customary RationalWiki teenage sarcasm. It's as if the writer, or cloth coat, simply believed that RationalWiki's readers would bathe in his general air of sarcasm and simply sneer at my words. So here are a couple of examples. Perhaps some quotes will suffice. Just as Soviet communists believed that the Gulag, show trials, class liquidations, etc., were necessary for X, Y, and Z, so warmists believed that their own political actions and words, to silence global warming heresy, are equally necessary in order to bring about something which is even more important than world communism: saving the planet. Yes, and in addition, there was, or there still is, a wiki administrator by the name of William Connolly, who has run for England's Green Party, who was also criticised for his almost Stalin-like editorialising. Yes, and finally.
Despite Pam himself being fairly young for a political blogger,
This writer really should do some research on the subjects he writes about. That way he won't waste people's time.
as Pam has an impulsive need to respond to every criticism of him on the internet, we await his whine response to this article.
And if I'd ignored all criticism, how would Cloth Coat have reacted to that? Would he have seen me as belonging to some kind of hard right echo chamber